All right, welcome everyone. My name is Cameron Nixon and I'm a sales engineer here at Lightspeed. I'm really happy to have Arthur Brown, who's the National Sales Director at PayBright, with me as well.
Hey everyone.
And today we'll be talking about opening your online store during these difficult times. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to add them in the chat box and we'll try and address as many as we can at the end of the presentation today. Okay, so let's get started. So first, I really just wanted to quickly highlight our company's vision, which is even more relevant in these confusing times. At Lightspeed, our mission is to bring cities and communities to life by powering independent business. Which means, oh, sorry. So speaking of the tools that we offer you, your businesses, today we're going to be focusing on the eCom side of things. So let's talk about getting ready to take your store online. So the first thing that we're going to start with is your inventory. Obviously, these are the products that you're going to be selling online, so you want to make sure that these are well set up and ready to be listed on your website. When you're selecting the items to push online, it helps to start with a small group, maybe 8 or 10 items to get started. And there's a few things you're really going to want to keep in mind when you're selecting them. The first thing you're obviously going to want to make sure is that you already have these products in inventory. You don't want to try and start up with a website and sell items that you might be waiting to come in from a supplier. You're going to want to make sure that you have these in stock and they're ready to sell right now. The next thing you're going to want to make sure is that you're able to actually sell them online. There are sometimes, vendors who will have certain restrictions about which products can or cannot be sold online. So you're going to want to make sure that you're in the clear to actually be able to push these products onto your web and sell them to your customers. The next thing that's really important is that you have the ability to ship these products. So if you have, maybe some smaller, more giftable items that are easier to send out, I would prioritize those over something that's larger and potentially a bit more difficult to send out. Following that, you're going to want to make sure that you can find or create at least one image for each item. When it comes to a website, obviously it's a very visual medium, so you're going to want to make sure that you have nice, well-framed images that display and highlight these products well. Following that, you're going to want to make sure that you can create content, so a short and long description for each of these items. In addition to that image, you're going to want to be able to paint a nice picture of what this product is and what it offers. So being able to add that content on your website is super important. Then the final thing to keep in mind is that these items should be related to another item that's already being showcased on your site. So if you're starting out and you're pushing these products online, you're going to want to pick that curated selection where each of the items sort of relates to each other rather than just a bunch of disparate, different items. So when you're putting together these descriptions for your items, there's a few details that you're going to really want to make sure you're including. So features are super important. So things like size, weight, materials, or any other sort of information about the product components themselves. But beyond that, you want to really highlight the benefits rather than just, a really sort of simple breakdown of the materials. You want to really sort of paint a picture of this item and highlight what's in it for the customer. Is this maybe a product that's going to make their life better in some way, or is there a particular problem that this product has been designed to solve? These are really great things to highlight in that description to, get your customers excited about the items that they're looking at on the site. So the other thing that's going to be really important too when you're building out that site is you're going to use categories to keep these items organized. So it helps to think of category pages on your website like aisles in your store. So going along with that, you're going to want to group these products within those categories in a way that makes sense to your consumer. So some tips when you're creating these categories, it helps to be very specific. So you want to use simple terms that are directly related to your products. This isn't the part of the site where you want to go on that long sort of, detailed description. This should be clear and concise. So you want to try and use maybe 1 or 2 words when you create each of these categories. When you're actually planning out how these categories are going to be put together and organized, it helps to do some research. You can use a tool like Google Keyword Planner, which will give you some insight into what people are actually searching for on the web. So it could be something like men's button-up shirts, or it could just be a more generic, men's tops. So you can figure out what the most commonly searched things are, and then you can use those keywords when you're building out that category structure. And that's going to make sure that customers are able to find your website if they're just typing in a simple Google search. So the other thing that's important is you don't want to forget the standard pages as well. Obviously, having the products is super important, but you also want to be able to paint a vivid picture of the business that your customers are actually going to be shopping from using that website. So an About Us page is a really great area to tell your customers who they're buying from, give them that full story about the business. A contact us page is also super useful. This will be where you'd list, the easiest ways for your clientele to actually communicate with you, and that'll help them establish trust in your business because it shows that you're willing to accept that incoming communication and be active and respond back to them. An FAQ page is also super handy. You can use this to list information about your shipping options, fees, if you offer a return policy. And then the other thing too, by having that FAQ page, is it's going to help cut down on that incoming communication from your customers. Because if I can just click in there, get the answer for my question, it saves them having to write that email and it saves you having to respond to that email. So it frees up more time for you to deal with all these orders that are going to be coming in. So speaking of those orders, you're going to need to have to set up your shipping options to allow your customers to actually buy those items and have it sent out. So when you're setting up these items, you're going to need to consider the shipping types that are available to you. The three sort of main options are integrated shipping, flat rate shipping, and pickup in store. We'll start with flat rate shipping because that's generally the easiest to use when you're getting set up at the beginning. So a flat rate shipment, you can say, for orders that are shipped out within my province or within my state, they're going to cost $10. The thing with flat rate shipping is you're always going to be sort of undercharging or overcharging customers. So it's going to be a bit of a sort of guesstimate. But again, this is definitely the quickest way to get set up and running at the beginning. So if that's the priority, start with the flat rate shipping option. And then once you get a sense of where your customers are actually purchasing from, you can maybe go in, fine tune those shipping fees, or you can look to something a bit more complex like integrated shipping options. For integrated shipping, we with Lightspeed eCom have two integrations, one with a company called ShipStation, one with a company called EasyPost. I'm sure there's a variety of other integrated shipping options available for other web platforms, but what these tools essentially do is they connect to a shipping carrier, so whoever it is you guys are already using for your shipments, whether that's FedEx, UPS, Canada Post, and it's going to actually pull a live shipping rate from that carrier, and it'll display it for your customer at checkout. So this is really where you get the sort of truest sense of what that shipping total is going to be. But the thing with integrated shipping is that it involves entering extra information for those items when you're creating them online. So weights and dimensions become super important here. So again, if you're trying to get set up and running right off the bat, integrated shipping will take a little longer because it does require those extra steps of filling in that detail, but it does ultimately get you, the sort of most accurate rate possible. And then the final option is pickup in store. So obviously, with the current situation, some retail stores may not have the ability to offer this safely, but if you are able to set up a scenario where customers are able to come pick up the items in your store, maybe through some sort of contactless option, that's another great option to provide to people on the website. So after you've selected your shipping option, you're going to want to source your supplies. Could we just go back one slide there really quickly? So in terms of these supplies, the last thing that you're going to want to have to deal with is you start getting orders in from the website, and then you don't have the shipping supplies available. So when you're going through and you're setting this up, either go place that order from UPS or from Amazon. Make sure that you've got all those bubble mailers or boxes set aside. So once the orders start coming in, you're ready to actually send those out in a timely fashion. And then the final thing to keep in mind is that you're really going to want to be transparent regarding the fees that you're charging. So the customers, if they're going all the way through to the checkout and just before they're ready to pay, they find out that shipping is going to cost a lot more than they had expected, this is going to be a really common thing that's going to cause people to abandon that cart. So it's really helpful to be transparent, maybe highlight somewhere on your site what your approximate shipping fees are, or you can offer something like a shipping calculator at the checkout page that customers can use to get a sense of how much it's going to cost. Another thing that can be super valuable during these difficult times is trying to offer something like curbside pickup. So this would be best suited to any sort of business where you have the ability to actually, drive out yourself and deliver these packages in a safe and sort of social distance fashion for your customers. So it's super easy to configure with our eCom platform. I'm sure there's a variety of other solutions that can be accomplished with other web platforms, but it is a really great way to, offer your customers that next level of service, showing them that you're, there and willing to help them out during these difficult times. So once we've got our shipping set up, you're going to want to connect that domain to your site, because this is really going to be what brands your website and gives them that sort of true sense of trust that they're visiting, a properly set up and a properly branded page. So if you don't already have a domain name, you can use a tool like GoDaddy or Google Domains to first find out if that name of the store is already taken, or if you need to maybe change around the sort of wording of it. You can then use these same tools to purchase that specific domain name, and then it's just a question of connecting that name to your provider. So this means that whenever I type in that URL, it's going to take me directly to that nice eCom website that you built out. All right, just one more slide. Perfect. All right, and then the last thing that we're going to touch on today is choosing a payment processor. So with our eCom platform, we work with a variety of different providers. We have our own in-house processing through Lightspeed Payments. We also work with companies like Cayenne, Stripe. We also have integrations with really common payment providers online like PayPal. So it can help to use maybe a mixture of things like PayPal that customers are already familiar with, or something a bit more integrated and seamless. But again, with the sort of modern retail landscape and the difficult times that we're dealing with, it can help to even think outside the box and offer an alternative ways for customers to be able to make those purchases on your site. And this is where I'm actually going to pass things over to Arthur so we can give you a breakdown on what PayBright offers.
All right, thanks, Cameron. So yeah, I'm just going to touch on the benefits of offering multiple payment options to your customers and why that improves conversion. And then secondly, just touch on the buy now, pay later trend that we're starting to see globally. So jump in here. Push it to the next slide. There we go. So have it in a Q&A format here. So when it comes to payments, what are Canadian consumers valuing the most? And the answer is choice and flexibility, really. So when we look at it, a lot of people already have these different accounts, like PayPal accounts, Alipay accounts, PayBright accounts, and it's been found that offering the top 3 payment methods in the country versus just the top 1, which is credit cards, improves conversion by about 30%. And when you think about it, if I have a PayPal account or whatever it is, I'm more likely to go and shop at a store that offers my preferred payment method. And so that's where we see that come in with offering multiple payment options. Really just giving your customers that flexibility is going to improve repeat business as well. And so then when we ask ourselves, what are Canadian consumers trying to avoid? And I don't think this is too surprising, but trying to avoid more credit cards and more debt. So when we look at a couple numbers, Canadians already have a lot of credit cards, 74 million credit cards, and this number is declining. So the reason why it's declining, everybody knows that credit card companies make a lot of their money from charging interest and compounded interest. And so millennials and younger generations are really starting to move away from credit cards, but there's still a big demand to pay over time. One other thing with the credit card model online, so there's a lot of businesses that offer a store credit card. So I could sign up for a credit card for a specific store. So I would fill out the application and enter the number at checkout. But inherently, e-commerce transactions are very different from in-store transactions. We don't have the same patience that we do online that we do in-store. So offering this option to sign up for a credit card, go through a long application, there'll be a lot of drop off there. And in general, people don't want to have another credit card. So go on to the next question here. So what are consumers looking for right now? And the answer is financial relief. So if we look at a couple trends happening with COVID, so social distancing, of course. So what is this doing? There's more consumer demand online now more than ever. And the second thing that we're seeing is Canadian consumers are now and will be going through financial difficulties, and there's probably going to be an increased need to pay over time. So luckily, there's a lot of companies in the buy now, pay later space that are addressing both of these issues. So I'll show you what this looks like globally. So if we transition again, we'll see a couple of the big players. Sorry, go back one. So when we look at it globally, there's so many of these companies that are doing this in Australia, in Europe, in the States. So this is what the landscape looks like now. It's a brand new thing in Canada. And actually, PayBright is the first company in Canada to offer this buy now, pay later option. Most of the time, it's 0% interest to the customer. And so it's starting to become a lot more standard. If we go to the next slide, you'll see a list of some of our partners. So these are some of the more recognized names. So Samsung, Lenovo, The Source, Sleep Country, Giant Bicycles. There's a lot of names not on here. And it's starting to become standard now for a lot of big companies. And so it's now starting to get adopted in Canada and becoming very popular. As you'll see at the bottom there, there's a list of the platform integrations that we have. One of which, of course, is Lightspeed. So if we go on to the next slide, I'll tell you a little bit how that works. So this is by far our simplest integration. If you already have a Lightspeed e-commerce store, it's as simple as going in to the Lightspeed app store, installing PayBright, and that's pretty much it. The way it works for like the customer journey, you would see PayBright as an integrated payment method beside credit cards and PayPal. They simply choose that. All they enter is their date of birth, and instantly we can approve somebody up to $15,000 depending on their credit. They then just electronically link their bank account and they check off a box to agree to the terms and conditions. So that whole process takes about 60 seconds. So it's very, again, it's ideal for an e-commerce experience. If we go on to the next one. So this is what it looks like visually. So on product pages, it's not highlighted here as well, but you see the total price is $389.99. And if you look below it, it says pay as little as $37 per month. So this is what it looks like on Wayfair's website. And even at checkout, this is how it's typically displayed. Because I'm sure we're all, have been making purchases. We put $2,000 worth of products in our shopping cart. You get to checkout, you realize this is huge, and you abandon the checkout. So this is a way to, again, improve that conversion, reduce that cart abandonment, because it's showing them how manageable the monthly payments would be. We can go on to the next one. And so just to sum up everything, essentially, we're seeing more purchases happening online. There's going to be more of a need to pay over time. And right now, the only way that businesses allow their customers to do this is by using a credit card. So really, the answer is offering your customers more flexibility, more options is what's going to improve your conversion the most when it comes to payment methods. And that's it. We can pass it back over to Cameron for questions.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Arthur.
No problem.
So yeah, I was just going through the list of questions. There's a lot of good ones in here. So unfortunately, I don't think we'll be able to get to all of them, but I should be able to dig into a few of these. So let me just pull up the first one that I was looking at here. So the question was, how much time would you say it takes to implement the setup? So get up and running with test products, test sales, and shipping integrations. So, I mean, generally for that, I mean, I've seen people do it within a day or two, but, I would say a week is more than plenty of time. I would say, the most amount of time you'll probably spend is configuring the different information for your products. The actual design side of things is quite easy. Setting up shipping is really just a question of either, going on a website, running through a few shipping calculations and using that flat rate shipping, or if you're using one of our integrated processors, it's really just a question of, copying and pasting credentials over from one side to the other. There was another question about the categories in retail, if those are used for the category structure on the website. So with our eCom platform, retail's category structure does push over onto eCom. So with that said, it is certainly possible to configure a category structure that's different on the website than how you have it set up in store. The only thing that I always suggest when I'm speaking to customers about this is if you can figure out a way to make it work in retail the same way you want it to display on the website, that's best, because really in the long run, this is just going to save you extra work, because otherwise you'd create your category structure in retail, and then you're going to have to go onto the website and sort of redo everything. So if you can figure out a way to have them, match between the two sides, that's really going to make your life a lot easier in the long run. Maybe Arthur, I'll actually pass this one on to you. So there's a question with a buy now, pay later model, who tracks down the people who don't pay their bills?
Good question. So we assume all credit risk and fraud risk. We pay our merchant partners next business day via EFT, and then we're assuming all the risk after that point. So we're tracking them down, we're handling that. We never come back to the merchant if the customer's not paying us back or anything like that.
Perfect. And then there was just another one here. Is PayBright an option for in-store customers as well?
Yes, it is. And working on the Lightspeed POS integration right now, so hopefully that's available soon, and it'll be available on Lightspeed POS as well.
All right, let me just browse through here really quickly. So are taxes such as GST automated? So yes, again, with our eCom platform, we do work with a system that runs in the background called TaxJar. So all that you have to do at the beginning is set up the country that you're going to be shipping from, and it will have the default sort of tax rules and rates already in place, so that when your customers go through the checkout, it's just going to automatically use the address that they've entered for their shipping and determine what tax rate should be applied to that specific order. All right, so I think that kind of wraps it up, unfortunately, in terms of the time that we have today to go over questions. Thanks so much for all your participation. We are going to be running a eCom 102 session that's going to be happening a little bit later this week. That's going to focus more on the design side of the website. So if you're interested in that, we'd be happy to see you again there. All right, so thanks again for attending. Have a great day.
Thanks, Kevin. Bye, everyone.
Bye.